Hello, everyone. Welcome to Creativity Hive's weekly show. I'm Miriam Haugen, part of the Creativity Hive team. We help budding videographers to tell better stories through one-on-one teaching and live group coaching. And this is part two of Spotlight on Neil Haugen. I'm going to bring Mo on because
Hey
he's in
everyone.
charge.
Hello. My outfit's changed. It's been a week, I
Uh-huh.
think.
Right.
Yes.
So should I just go ahead and bring Neil on?
Yes, please.
Okay, here he is.
Hello.
Hello, Neil Haugen.
Hello, Mo Mula.
I'm sorry. The last time we were cut off because of the gremlins in the country, but we're back and we shouldn't have any gremlins now. So you know how it goes, and you understand the 2 minute thing, and we're ready to begin. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. Okay. So you might have heard this sort of question before, you might not have heard it before. As a professional colorist, how would someone, in your opinion, that is just beginning their journey as a colorist, a student that's beginning, how does a student get into a major feature film studio when the prerequisite is 5 years, 10 years worth of experience? It's a question that a lot of people have been asking. How do you get that 5 to 10 years? And what is your point of view on this? Is there a way to shortcut it, circumvent it, or do you have to work for 10 years doing stuff and then everything changes in the industry because of technology?
That is, it's the old thing of every job list, we want so much experience, and you're going, okay, how do you get the experience? I was listening to a podcast recently that was interviewing Temple Grandin. Temple is a noted person who has designed most of the cattle slaughtering and actually much of the animal slaughtering facilities in the United States over the last 40 years. She is also noted for being on the autism spectrum and, of course, having had all these issues that she's had to overcome while working on developing her professional life and everything. And she said that when she was asked, so, well, with the autism, how did you do for like job interviews? And she goes, oh, I don't do job interviews. I always do the back doors. And so they were going back doors. Yeah, like she um, went to this one big professional cattle show because she knew that there would be some of the lead people there. She wanted to write articles, and there would be some of the lead people there that for the major publications. And so she went up and said, I'd like to write an article for you, and how would I get a hold of you? And this is a few years ago, and the guy gave her his business card and said, well, okay, I'll take a look at it. And so she wrote up, she knew what kind of things his magazine published, and she wrote up 3 articles and sent them to him. And they looked at him, decided to publish one without pay on the first one, but had good reactions to it. And we're looking at the others and got back a hold of her. And pretty soon she was a regular contributor. Well, all of a sudden she is now a writer for this one magazine.
Okay,
And
so your time's up. But what you're saying in a nutshell is go through the back door.
yep, figure out how
Okay,
to get through the back door.
all right. So the other question that was very important for me to ask you was, you've had a decade's worth of experience from your printing company and now into coloring and editing. Is there a particular reason you've not found yourself in Paramount or Sony or James Cameron's edit suite or coloring suite? Or is that simply by choice?
I like living here in Monmouth, Oregon. I don't want to move.
If it was for a job, let's assume it was for a huge production. Is there a reason you haven't found yourself at that juncture?
Uh, I might have taken a temporary, but I will say I was offered a position here a few years ago that would have involved only moving to Seattle, and I said no. And Seattle, for those, of course, most of around the world, that's a 4-hour drive up I-5 freeway from where we live. So it's not that far. It's 190, 200 miles north of us. But no, I like living here. And so Miriam and I have just done what we could to put together a living while living here. I didn't want to move. So
Okay. And if you had to get onto if they hired you for a post job for a feature film, is there a reason you didn't go down that route, or were you not offered that, or did you turn it down? Or and this is not permanent moving, it could be just for that project period.
I have one time been offered a position to resuscitate a project that needed some work with color correction and organization of the project. It would have involved moving out of the country for about 3 or 4 months. And even for that one, I looked at it and went, there were parts that were interesting, but on the other hand, the person I'd be working under is known for being a bit of a pain to work with at times, and was the main reason why the project was such a mess. So I said no.
Okay, understood. If Adobe Max has it's a multi-headed hydra. It has illustrators, it has editors, visual effects guys, it has Photoshop people. If you were given the opportunity to do a keynote at Max, what would you stand up and say?
Oh, that would be a fun one. Basically, it would be that this is a program and a time where you can create any life, any existence that you want to create on that screen, if you have the discipline internally to learn how to craft it. Because no matter how funny the tools are, no matter how cool the AI may seem to be and everything like that, it still comes down to your ability to do the craft. I was listening to just a little bit of the editor for one of the editors for Everything Everywhere All at Once, pointing out that they were trying to do things, that they were trying to figure out how to come up with a language of their editing that would get across the feeling of the sudden changes when one of the characters is talking with someone and all of a sudden they're being sucked into another multiverse kind of thing. How to handle that and how to make it a little different for each character. Well, that comes down to just having so dang much knowledge of your craft that you can puzzle out how to do something like that. It's knowing the craft is still the most important thing you can do.
So using imagination together with your skill set is the magic potion.
Yeah.
The software just pretty much follows suit and does what you ask it to do. Great.
I've so many times written that these programs are they're tools. They're a fancy hammer. They're just a fancy hammer. And, whether you're using Premiere, you're using Resolve, you're using Avid or Final Cut, whatever, it's a fancy hammer. But the better you can wield the hammer, the more stuff you can do with it.
Okay. So an artisan sculpting, really, is what you're saying. That's really interesting. If you could choose between being somebody that is an editor, somebody that's a colorist, somebody that's been that could be a sound designer, because I see you like sound design as well. If you could pick one of the three, which of the three would you want to be for the rest of your life, and then more importantly, why?
In order: colorist, sound, and editor last. Um, I have and something that's fairly common with people on the autism spectrum. I can struggle with executive function, and that's the ability to just make a decision and move on, because you overthink things. You get anxiety going, and you worry about things. Editing for me is all kinds of decisions, making those cuts. Which order do you put the clips in, for God's sakes? I can sit there and angst about what order I should put the clips on for an hour, when most everybody else is going, oh my God, would you just throw them on the blasted timeline? And if you change the order, that's fine, but just get them on there and get going. And I'm sitting there going, but how do I want to put them on there to start? I don't have that problem with color, and I have a little bit of a problem occasionally with sound design, but not much. But when I'm with editing, executive function just kicks in like crazy. Color, I just start playing with my knobs, and um, it is so easy for me to just flip into a thing where I'm analyzing what I'm seeing and what I want to see, and you have to have both a very real feel of what you actually have now, and a feel of kind of where you at least want to start going, and then you can start doing the process. And it's not like I'm having to make any decisions or anything. It's so yeah, color is I can lose myself in color.
Cool. Um, there was an interesting a few articles you've written. You've written numerous articles. You have a blog, and so you enjoy writing. I think even above coloring, it's something you enjoy doing quite a bit of,
Yeah.
because I've seen the in-depth stuff, not only on the forums. You like, is that because you like to educate people, or is that a creative outlet for you?
It's a creative outlet, actually. I do like to educate people. That's fun, but it's a way to stretch my own brain. It's a way to learn. Um, by the time you've written something out, you've had to rethink it and figure out how to express it um, succinctly um, and effectively at the same time. And that really helps the thinking process in a way that you don't get by just sitting there going, you know.
Yeah.
So it's a process of sharpening the mind.
Are you writing a book? Are you thinking about writing a book?
Yeah.
Not at all.
Um, that just sounds like an awful lot of work, and the kind of thing where my executive function would kick in. Writing an article is one thing. Writing a whole book, that's a series of steps and all these decisions that you have to make and everything. So,
What
yeah.
about writing a book about the change in the creative process from the time you began to what you see now? Would
Hmm.
that be something difficult to do?
That would be um, that'd be kind of an interesting thing to do, and probably not be all that difficult. Another thing that where I've half joked, our daughter is a 40-year-old Lutheran pastor who is also like me on the spectrum, and um, she does quite a bit of both speaking in public on this, and also she's on a committee in her area that meets to work with and advise the educational system on how to handle the autistic kids in the area, or potentially autistic kids in their area. And So, she's written a couple online articles on it, and for a couple newspaper articles. And so I was joking that we have between us an interesting history of things we could talk about. So we ought to do a book together. And we were sitting in her living room, and she was at her typing with a computer in her lap, and looks up at me and goes, hmm, hmm, and then went back to her book. So I think she at least was thinking about it. But that would be an interesting thing to do. Would be to write a book, father and daughter, autistics on living autistic.
It would be interesting. Your your views on the next 10 years
Hmm.
in the creative field, from whether it's Adobe, whether it's Resolve, whatever it is, where do you see these pieces of software actually going at the rate they're going?
That is really going to be fascinating because, like, right now, they have made a big, to me, the biggest improvement in Premiere Pro in the last uh, uh, 3 or 4 years has been um, bringing back speech recognition, so that you could take a clip and tell it to make a transcript of it, and it creates a transcript of it. And you can not only use that for captions, but you can use it for editing, um, by going to the caption, and you just click on you just scroll down the uh, uh, the little list of all the words that it has on the screen, and to a point, and it will move the timeline to that point. And they're starting to get more capability for editing by that text.
Mm,
And I've already done one little thing with it where I printed out an interview and selected the parts of it from just the printer, just marked on the paper, paper printout, marked what I wanted to work with, and then just went and put those bits on a timeline. Well, that is so much easier than listening through the blame thing,
mm.
5 times to figure out which ones you want to use, because you can just look at it and go, okay, this, and this. And it is so much faster. But I think there's going to be some things like that for the editing process, for putting the stories together, that are going to be the things that we'll notice the most. It's how easily and how quickly you can integrate the various uh, assets of the project into your sequence, into your story, all fit. I think that's the area that's going to really, we're going to notice the most, and feel like it's changed the most. It'll
And
make
do
a
you
lot of
not think this would become something that takes away from the hands-on creative, the creative feel that editors should or have had, and become more automated and more sterile in its entire design?
There is, of course, the possibility for generating automatic stuff, but
Mm,
at least at this point, it's still so easy to tell when you hit automatically generated stuff. Uh, I've seen, like, high school teachers talk of how it is so easy to tell the kids that have gone to Chat GPT or whatever it is to
mm,
try and create a paper, and simply say, no, this isn't yours, and this doesn't work. And even a medical school uh, uh, prof pointing out that he had told at the beginning of the class that no artificial generated, no chat, whatever or whatnot papers are acceptable. You have to write everything yourself. And he had, like, one of those profs that has like 2 or 3 main papers or midterms that you have to do, and your grade is dependent on those. And about a third of the class, he was able to walk in with their papers the next day and say, all these papers in this stack have an F because they're chat generated, auto generated. Well, of course, that's a little problem because you have to have at least a B in that class, or it's of no use. You have to take the class over again. You start off with an F like that, bail. You're gonna have to take that class again anyway. And he had a whole bunch of people in the room just sitting there, just shocked that he had caught it. Um, I imagine it'll get better, but I still think it's going to be fairly easy to tell the auto-generated. So, yeah.
So, leading on to that question, do you think creativity is on the rise or not, or is it on the decline from what you've seen out there?
Probably both. There's always a dichotomy between wanting to do something new just because it looks different, or whether or not you're actually doing something that's better.
Right.
And
Right.
like watching movies, you'll see movies will go through phases where a lot of the movies will come out and there'll be a certain looks or whatnot. The early to mid 70s, 1970s, you have you just glance at a frame of a movie and you can say, okay, when that was. You don't even have to look at the clothing, just the contrast levels, saturation levels, everything like that. Because we tend to group things as humans. We kind of chase after what each other's doing, and then when what we're chasing changes, then we kind of chase after that. So there's always times when you're getting the push to just do again what you did the last time. But then there's also rewards for people that go, no, I'm going to do it this way, and I think it'll work, and I think people will like it. And so you have the push both ways. Right now, Hollywood is so caught up in mimicking Hollywood. I mean, look, Everything Everywhere All at Once came out of nowhere because it's not a prequel or a sequel. I mean, wow, just go figure it. It's not something or other for. Disney can't do anything hardly without it being a sequel even anymore. They can't think of anything new, but somebody else will.
Yes, somebody else will. It's becoming quite rare to find novel content, novel movies being made that's copycat most of the time. The last time there was a movie with a good story was quite a while back. It's series and it's reality shows, and that's what it is right now. So the question that I have for you is that if you could have worked on any three films ever made, any three films, what would they be, and what would your responsibility or role on those films be? Any film, could be from the 1920s, 30s, 40s, right up till today.
I'd love to have been someone working as an assistant director on Casablanca, simply because that hot mess of a production turned out one of the most glorious cinematic experiences ever. And it was a mess beginning to end. They kept hiring and firing script writers. They kept changing the script throughout the show. By the time they got done with shooting it, they completely changed the storyline from what they were planning. And Hans Conried's character was not nearly as important as it was planned to be at the beginning, and Bogey's was more important. And and then they had to go back and reshoot that last line. This is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. That, of course, was thought they'd finished everything else and realized we needed to do something at the end, and so they got them back and just in the studio and did that one line. So that would have been fun. Being on again another assistant editor position on the first Star Wars movie, because that there was so much stuff that was new, that was fresh, that that they were coming up with that had never been done before. Like the first time the Millennium Falcon jumps to hyperspace, and you've got all the stars going by you, and they don't even react to it at all. It's like, oh yeah, it's cool, it's, whatever, and everybody in the theater is going, oh my God, look at that. And the characters on screen are just, oh, thank God we're in hyperspace now. And but there were so many things that they were doing that were just so outrageously in that. And um, and then another one, oddly enough, would be probably 2001: A Space Odyssey. Just again because the thinking going on in that movie was amazing when they were putting it together.
And I see the roles you mentioned with AD, so assistant director.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any reason for choosing that role and not any other role? You could have said director, right?
Because because as an assistant director, you're helping somebody else's process, and at the same time, you're getting a chance to learn while you're doing it. It would have been learning what's going on in their heads. Watching someone up close that is really doing something outrageously cool and unique, and getting to study them up close while they're doing it. That would have been to me the chief fascination.
I heard through the grapevine that you almost killed someone in a barn. It might have been your own son with an axe. You're going to shoot this movie. Okay, I heard this somewhere. And is that ever going to become a short film at any point in time?
We're still working on it. This spring we will, in the next month or so, as we start getting a little better weather, so it's not quite as close. We will go ahead and film this scene. What he's talking about is I've got a video tutorial for my website on your lion eyes. And because of a lot of things in color, you learn where your eyes lie to you. Grass is not green. It's mostly yellow. It's like 80% yellow and about 20% cyan. It's not green. There's no green at all. And skin is not pink. Pink is a magenta. It's a mix of blue and green. Pink skin is between red and yellow, which is on the other side of red from blue. And, and a number of other things like that where you have to learn exactly how bad your eyes are at seeing these things in order to get good at working with color. And so I've got a scene that I thought of because every once in a while when you're doing one of these things, you want to do something that's a little fun, right? And so I've got this scene that I've figured out that where we'll have perhaps a machete or an axe murder going on, or is it really? We'll have to wait and see, won't we?
And will this be traveling anywhere to Cannes or any of the big festivals?
No, it would be an incredible short thing, like about what I imagine this part will end up about 30 seconds at most. It'll be a cool 30 seconds, but
cannot wait to see it when it's done.
Yeah.
And I have the final kind of question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Author of many articles, blogs, advice columnist, editor, colorist supremo, budding sound designer, photographer, or worked in the photographic industry, football player until injured.
Yep.
Met a wonderful woman and decided to settle down. So pretty legendary if we had to make a film about you, right? Where do you see yourself, just you, in this industry in 10 years?
Probably retiring about then. I figure that I'll be ready to retire. That'll put me old enough that I'll be able to go, yeah, I'm just going to spend the rest of the time with my grandkids. Because my grandkids will be teenagers by then, so.
I personally don't ever see you retiring, ever. I don't see you leave this world ever, because it's something that's embedded into your genetic makeup. You enjoy it so much
Yeah.
that what I see as being a chore, you see as being a joy. I could never fill your shoes. It's impossible. That 99.9% of the people that I know could never fill the shoes. You are a perfectionist of epic proportions. So if I had a hat, I would tip it. Yeah, if I had hair, I'd tip it as well. But I think you, you not. I don't. I think you want one of those that will last and leave a legacy in terms of your knowledge
Hmm.
and what you've brought. You might not have been on the spotlight and you might not have been center stage, but not many people can claim not being on the spotlight or in the spotlight on the center stage, but still leave such a absolutely amazing legacy for. This is why I say it's this thing about writing a book, because your book would not be like a bestseller. No, it might sell 3 copies, right?
Yeah.
But it would be like the Bible.
Hmm.
You don't sell the Bible, you give the Bible away because it's pure, utter knowledge. And that's what I see for you. So don't tell me retire. It's not going to happen. You're going to leave behind a lot. And I see this going on. And then the way you're so healthy. I mean, it's going to happen until you're 100 years old. So it'll be really great. So I'm looking forward to it, Neil.
Okay.
Everyone, this has been the spotlight on Neil R. Haugen with the R. And it's been a total pleasure to get into his mind. Wonderful man, wonderful friend, wonderful husband. I can't speak for Maria, but it's what I've seen between them. Great father, great human being, humanitarian, compassionate, empathic, and an all-round wonderful person is what I can say. Yeah, he has his yeah, sometimes he can get a bit upset, but that's fine. But thank you, Neil. I really appreciate it that you've given me the opportunity to take the time to kind of dig into your mind a little bit. Miriam is next.
Oh, is that
Ooh.
so?
You can edit it
Yeah.
out if you want.
All
So
right.
yeah, cool. So that's
Time
that.
to sign
Thanks,
off.
guys. Thank you for joining us. Bye,
Bye bye.
Neil. Bye, Miriam.